Hello everyone and thanks for coming back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at the Runcam Phoenix 2. Why are we looking at the back? Because it's a pretty blue. On my scale it weighs 8.5 grams. From the lens to the back I'm getting 20 millimeters. And from the lens to the connector I'm getting 23.5 millimeters. Of course it's 19 millimeters by 19 millimeters for your mounting pattern. It comes with a bracket for additional mounting needs, screws for mounting, and a wiring harness. So we're out back this time. We're going to do our lens test. As you can see, I'm wearing a coat because it's terrible cold. I've actually had this camera for 2 weeks, a week and a half, something like that. And the weather has not been kind. Thankfully, we have indoor flying that we can do. But the cloth test comes at varying distances, so you can gauge how quickly it recovers from having that sunlight directly in its view. And it did pretty well, in my opinion. Matter of fact, one of the things I look for in that is any sort of flash in the lens, because when I'm flying out back in the months where I have leaves on the trees, I have a lot of spots with bright sunlight, and that flash gets kind of hard on my eyes as I'm coming through the sun and the shadows. So that's something I look for, but I have this here so you can take the camera in, and we'll continue on with the rest of our footage. Out front, we're going to take it for a fly around, my normal things. For those of you that have been around the channel, you probably can mute me. You don't need to hear me tell you these things. You've probably heard them many times if you've looked at many of the camera review videos as we cruise around the yard and the front of the neighborhood. We get to see the red cars. I actually have a yellow trash bag that we'll take a quick look at as well. That's a new color to have out front. Yellow isn't something that we oftentimes see, or it's something that I noted because I had a special bag full of garbage and I wanted to take a look at that. You saw it here over on the right as we cruise as much as we can this time of year in and out of the shadows. I do go over to one of my neighbor's houses and kind of hide behind it, but you can see I'm passing in front of the house of our direct neighbor, and that they have a predominant shadow over there for us to fly through. So Runcam markets this as a freestyle camera, and it has an M12 lens, and it appears to only come in one field of view, which is 155 degrees, but they only note that 155 degrees on 4x3, but it is switchable to 16:9 as well. I don't fly 16:9 primarily because my flight style, it doesn't really work very well with 16:9. I need that top view so I can nose down and go fast. I've been told I should try it, and I probably should. I enjoy flying so much in 4.3 16:9. I'm thinking I just want to see what I like to see so I can fly and have fun. We go over to my neighbor's house here and we take a look at the garage. This is something all of you guys like to see. Look for fisheye or lens distortion. We also get to see some shimmer on the top of those shingles. That's something else that many of you look at. And we get some lines that we can compare there as well with the brick and the lines of the shingles as well. As we fly around, I notice that my neighbors are out, so I have to avoid that area. I thought I heard something over there, so I have to kind of shorten my course just a little bit and cruise the other way. I always like it when I can see the shadow of the quad in my view. That's something that sometimes I like it enough to where it gets to be distracting. And here I'm just putting the sun directly in light so you can see what it looks like at varying distances when you have the sun directly in the lens. Another little sample test that I could try to work out, something I thought of just when I was flying. But back to that being distracted by the shadow. I just like that so much that I find myself watching that shadow, and I have to remember that my eyes kind of get locked on the quad shadow on the ground, because I do like to watch that. It's pretty cool. I've always enjoyed that. Even when I've watched some flight footage, I find that when I see the shadow, I'm drawn towards the shadow. Let me know if you're also drawn to the quad shadow, either when you're flying or when you're watching flight footage, that it's just something that catches your eye, and it's kind of a cool, almost third-person sort of view of what you're doing. I think we've pretty much covered everything in the front yard that we need to see as far as the colors that we do have this time of year. You know, it is winter time. We don't have much green. Most of that is gone. Oh yeah, we're going to take a look at that garbage bag that's yellow up here a little bit so you get an opportunity to see a different color. That's a pretty bright yellow, and I think it comes out in the full sun a little bit lighter in color than it really is, but when you get on the opposite side where the bag isn't in full sun, it looks more like I'm visually used to its appearing. But let's go ahead and let's start to take a look at the nighttime footage. I have two to show you here. So as you can see, we got snow on the ground. The first time I took it out, and this footage that we're looking at, in the goggles, I was pretty surprised. And I actually am out here quite a while because I am so stunned. I'm like, this is completely flyable. And our neighborhood, if you're not familiar again with the neighborhood when I do camera reviews, our neighborhood is very dark. We don't have street lights. All we have is house lights. This was really surprising. Matter of fact, it fooled me because I actually, after sleeping on this footage for a night, I decided to go back out, wait, be patient. I'd found that the weather indicated that we might get a little bit of a melt off. So let's, see how that appears without all the snow, because that is something that I thought was very, very remarkable. But this might give you an idea of what the footage or what your flying experience might be like if you were in a neighborhood with lights, or in a car park or a parking lot, something like that. We get a reflection of that white snow, and that really lightens things up a little bit. And I say that because the next footage we're going to see, it's not nearly as bright out when we don't have that snow, that white snow reflecting that light off. Okay, so here the snow's pretty much gone. There might be a few splotches here and there, but I go out again, and this is more typical of what I expected to see. In that dark area to the left of the house where I go, it's very dark. It's so dark that even to the naked eye, I can't see. This is actually a little bit better than you see with the naked eye. You may not think so, depending upon what sort of screen you're watching this on, but it is very dark over in this area. I've told the story either the last time or the time before, but in the warmer months when I'm wearing flip-flops or slides, I think the kids call them now, and I'm taking out a bag of trash to those bins that sit over there, I'm always a bit concerned that there's something furry over there waiting for me, or something that I might stumble upon. I'm going to go ahead and change the different modes so you get an idea what that looks like in this view. I didn't show it in the last view just because I'm not certain how useful that is, but I wanted to show it to you in case it might be useful. If you've seen similar things, you can maybe take what you saw in that section where it had snow on the ground versus, something else that you've seen, another comparison, another detail point that you can use to grade the camera if you'd like. I should note that, to not confuse it, this is not the Oscar Liang, this is the Phoenix 2, so it's the second one they've done. It's a 1/2 inch sensor. It's promoted as a 1000 TV line. I mentioned the field of view of 155 degrees. It is switchable. You can flip the camera, and we'll look at all these settings, but I think most people don't really look at the settings all that much. I actually don't get too many comments about going through the settings, and it can take a power input from 5 volts all the way up to 36 volts. I think the last thing worth mentioning is that this camera isn't nearly as expensive as the last one they came out with. This one is only $26.99. Of course, price can vary, and I'll put links down in the video description of shops that have this. I don't know how long this has been around or available to web shops, so that could be fairly limited, but I'll poke around after I edit the video, and I'll put links to various shops where I can find this. No, not all of those are affiliate links. You guys should spend your money with your favorite shops. Make sure you keep them in business and operating so those people can feed their families as well. Here's our settings, and the only thing that I kind of noted about the settings was that how it used the highlight. One of the things that, doing this that I get sensitive to is when they make the text hard to read, I'm trying to think of ways to make it easier for you to see what those settings are. In this particular case, it's pretty interesting because they actually seem to change the font, because you'll notice that when it's highlighted, it goes to an outline version of the font. Maybe they're just doing some color switching there too. That's possible as well. But it does go to that outline version, and it does highlight the selection that you're on, kind of that darker blue color. And so I think in this regard, with looking at the settings, that is a pretty good way of doing it. I would encourage all camera manufacturers to make sure that the settings can be easily viewed. And I think that's a simple thing for them to do. And it's something that if you're changing camera settings is probably really important to you. I did note in the last video where I asked about camera control through the flight controller, and a number of people, to my surprise, chimed in that you do use it. You might only use it once to set your camera up, but there's always that possibility if you get in a particular flying situation where having that already wired can be really, really handy. If you want to see all the settings, you can go ahead and slow this down a little bit. Probably should have mentioned that earlier, but I go through the settings relatively quickly just because very few people actually watch the settings or get to this depth of the video. But for those that do, I want to make sure that this stuff is all here for you. You can see it's got the inverting that it can do, and then you've got the DWDR that you can turn it on or off. They call it open and close. And then we have the typical reset, save, and exit. So this is the part of the video where you need to leave your feedback. From what you saw, how do you grade the camera? How do you grade the image, the light handling? How do you think it did at nighttime? This isn't about me. This is about you. Let Runcam know what you think of this camera. Let Runcam know what you think of the price point, $26.99 according to their shop. Again, I'll put links down in the video description to all the various shops where I can find this. It may not be in stock. It could be in pre-order. So that's something that I hope that everyone takes care to know of whether this item is going to ship immediately. Of course, it's currently Chinese New Year's, but that'll be ending about the time this video comes out. So your shipping may be a little bit delayed if you're getting it from the Far East, but I'll put all sorts of shops, and I always try to put a label down there so you know which link goes to which shop. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.